Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Paul. At the age of 74, I am what's called an early baby boomer. Maybe because of that, I am fascinated by the thoughts and motivations of younger generations like the Millennials and the Gen Zs. Although in our generation gaps, we still have many common traits and values, still there are significant differences, especially when it comes to how we live life. My guest today, Tom Yankle, is an older millennial at 40 who has a deep experience-based understanding of how people in the ages of 25 to 45 think about life. And I am interested, very interested, in how people think about life. With that, let's bring on our guest, Tom Yankle. Welcome to the next chapter with Charlie.
Hey, Charlie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and have this conversation with you.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. You know, Tom, I am, as I alluded to in the introduction, I'm very interested in the thought patterns of generations and cultures different from my own. I travel. I've been to several countries. I like, rather than seeing sights, I like seeing people and the way they live and what the cultures are all about. And that's the same way with cultures here in the United States. And I find that one of the things I wrote a blog and I'm going to post it this weekend, and it's about the absurdity of certainty. And we can, in our cultures especially, I think it's true of all cultures, we as Americans are there. And my next blog will be on the absurdity of creativity, not absurdity of creativity, but absurdity of certainty. And I think far too many people are certain about far too many things. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I absolutely agree. I think that a lot of certainty comes from a lot of comfort, and when people are comfortable, they feel sure of themselves. So I feel that there's too many people that are sure of themselves for the wrong reasons, and they haven't really. It's also like certainty can be almost attributed to a lack of awareness.
Yeah. I think, and I think our culture, especially if you look at media, and we will talk a lot about social media because that's a major aspect of our culture today. But in institutions like news institutions and universities, their goal is to teach certainty. There's not a lot of emphasis on teaching curiosity and wonder. I wonder why they feel this way. I wonder how they got this way. It's saying this is the way they are, and therefore they are good or evil. Do you find that in universities and news stories? And is that a common thread for you?
I absolutely agree with you. I'm not sure why it got that way, but I feel like if you ask a question at the university level now, you're almost cast aside or looked at as like a crazy person. Like, why are you challenging what I said? And I think it's sad because the whole idea of higher education is to be challenging, to grow, to learn. And if your teachers or the dean of the school is saying this is what you have to believe because I said so, that doesn't seem like a very way to create like a strong, productive adult that's going to be a great, we need great people to create more great people, and that doesn't seem very well thought out to me.
Yeah, especially when we're just trying to reduplicate or make replicas of people that we don't get great leadership there. Now,
no.
Something I was thinking about is that people in general spend a boatload of time on social media. Now, we're going to talk about your generation, the people 25 to 40 to 45 and younger spend an inordinate amount of time on social media. But let's not forget people my age. I have an impairment to my eye that I have to go to an eye doctor for retina membrane glaucomas, all those sorts of things. There's two age groups that go to retina specialists: babies and very old people. You know, those are the ones that contract these diseases or the impairments. And when I am in a waiting room, if there are 9 people in the waiting room, 7 to 8 of them, and they're over 70 years old, they're 70, 80 years old, are on their cell phone. They're on this. So it's not just, let's just don't put this on the millennials and the Gen Zs. They're on their cell phone. Now, I think they're gathering different kinds of information, but nevertheless, it has become, sort of the go-to methodology. Tell me, from the younger to me, even younger, some are younger than you, the 25 to 45, what do you see as the reasons social media is so popular? And then I want to ask about the downsides of that.
Well, I think the reason social media is so popular is because it's instantaneous and it's at our hands. I mean, a lot of my past career was built on exploiting that for profit, and you really have 15 seconds to capture somebody's attention, and that's why social media exists. It's fast, it's easy, and it's in our hands. And it's not like reading a newspaper article or siphoning through a book to find a passage. It's quick and it's easy, and everyone has one now. I think that the idea of social media for all ages is it's fascinating for you to say what you just said, that it's not just my age group or younger, it's everyone now, and it's because we all have cell phones, we all have smartphones, and it's great. And I don't know how I would live without my cell phone now, but obviously we made it as a race, as a society, without cell phones, but we've become so dependent on them that it's almost an addiction, just like anything else. It's hard to put down, it's hard to unplug, and people want to know, you're refreshing, you're looking at Twitter, and granted, there's plenty of great uses for it, but also it's all consuming, and it is an addiction.
For those of us that are in the contemplative world of solitude and silence, we suggest that it is a discomfort with the self, that I am not comfortable being alone with me and my thoughts. I have to have something to distract me. It was television for the longest time, but there was limits to that. Now this cell phone. Do you think that applies? That's pretty philosophical. Do you think that applies to millennials and Gen Zs?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you can even go further. Now it's like part of parenting. If a kid, you have a son, before there was an iPad to give a child, you either discipline them, but now it's easier, and it's here. Just give them the iPad and let them either play a game or watch a program to keep them from screaming and crying. So it's almost like ingrained in them from the get-go, and then that's what they know, and that becomes their blanket or their binky or whatever. It's like, here's the iPad, and then that's what they grow up learning. That's how they find. So much of it now is that's how people find out information, is on their cell phones.
Yeah, that's a dangerous thought. When we had chatted, we were in the midst of a dinner, and we were chatting, and you listed a handful of things that you thought were the downside of engaging in too much social media. Can you sort of outline some ideas that you had about what those downsides are?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think so much of social media creates a false sense of what is real or what is cool. And life isn't about, it's about, there's plenty of great role models all around the world, but when all we see as, age 25 to 45 is celebrities on private jets and flashy cars and, designer handbags and designer suits, and it creates that's what people think is realistic, which it's not. And they also then think that they attribute like worth to that, or self-worth. Like I have to get this new bag, and I have to get this new that, and keeping up with the Joneses, but on a unrealistic level. And then it goes one step further of they feel that they are owed that because someone else did it, and that someone else is a celebrity, and they're not. It's not comparing apples to apples, and then it's literally a vicious cycle of they see that, they don't get that, they become defeated, they become a less productive human being, and then they're back on social media looking at and it's almost like they become bitter at life because of social media.
That has a lot to do with parenting as well, doesn't it? That we create this, and it's probably, I don't know what percentage of America, but a great percentage of America, the middle class, even the lower middle class, as you said, they use social media and iPads and phones to distract their children either from misbehaving and sometimes, Tom, even from participating. If they didn't have that, they might participate in adult conversations. And that limits their ability to think, to interact, to be social. And it makes them think, and these same parents above lower middle class have resources to give to their children, that children begin to think life owes them something. And that I really don't have to work for it. Life is just going to give it to me.
I mean, knocked it out of the park with what you just said there. And that's a big problem, because if that's all you watch and all you see, you think that's why they think that. Like, we can understand that. So it really does start with the parents to either teach their children, like, hey, this is a show. This isn't real life for you. Granted, there's outliers where someone might become a famous YouTube sensation, or maybe somebody will work really hard, but it makes everything seem like it's easy and that's like par for the course, when in fact it's not, and it never will be for most, 99% of those people. And that's where, like I said earlier, they have this sort of like convoluted sense of reality of like, what is really good for me, or what do I really want? And social media sort of shoves that down, men and women and whoever's throats alike all the time.
One thing that occurs to me that is not so much social media, but it does have to do with the entitlement, and this is my generation, as a parent, not as a child, but as a parent. It happened after my son had already gone out of high school and proceeded in his career. And it happened, I first noticed it in recreational soccer, is that we quit identifying winning teams and losing teams. There was no substrata of placing and who were winners and who were losers. Everybody got a participation trophy. Aren't you cool? Aren't you great? Yeah. And they begin to think that that's what life is like. They're all going to get a participation trophy, and then they get into the world of work, and it is a competitive world of winners and losers. You either produce or you don't produce. You don't produce, you're gone.
No, I mean, and I agree. I think, so many times in my past as a manager, as a leader, you have employees that they want to be admired or given extra love or appreciation for doing the bare minimum, which is their job. And I would say, you get paid to do your job. That's the transaction. When you go above and beyond, I'll be the first one to give you that praise, go out of my way to do something nice for you. But you're not just going to get a attaboy from me for doing the bare minimum. That's what we pay you for. And even then, that's not really fair to the business. And we're in this time now where so many people that are coming out of college expect to be well paid with no experience. Like, you haven't done anything yet. You've done literally nothing. I'm happy that you graduated from college, but that's not experience. That's education. And you haven't done any experience. Therefore, you don't warrant that 6-figure salary starting.
Tom, you'll get a crack up out of this. I was working with a large company, and I was working with one of the head of human resources. and a resource professional told me a story of one of the employees received a negative review, or, a critical review that was not a stellar review. Do you know that a mom called the human resource professional, and gave them all kinds of hell about giving a bad report? And do you know what? God bless her. Do you know what her response was? You know what, man? You don't have to worry. Your daughter will never receive a bad review again. Really? Yeah, that's because she no longer works here.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like, I couldn't imagine. I mean, there's so many times, and I think I count my blessings every day that I have good parents that, instilled in me and raised me the right way. And, as my journey through life, anytime I had a problem, I would call my dad. And he would always say to me, he's like, well, what did you do to warrant that? And I would sort of fumble, and he's like, son, I love you. He's like, no one's just gonna, he's like, you have to be okay with criticism. That's how you grow. And when he told me that, I got really into feedback and hearing feedback, good or bad, because that's the only way we grow. And I try to still tell everyone that. Like, I try to operate my life every day like I'm doing it the best that I can. If no one's going to tell me, hey, I don't like the way you're doing this, they can't expect me to read a mind. But that's why feedback, good or bad, is important and valuable for any person that really wants to grow into the best version of themselves.
And that statement, I so agree, and that statement makes me think of something else you told me. As I was so enamored with what you were saying that I was writing stuff down. Me and my note-taking.
Oh,
makes
absolutely.
people afraid to talk to me because I could be taking notes on what they're saying. But you said every day you ask yourself, what do I need to do today to make it my best day? And you said things that came to your mind were, few things are better than the feeling from a productive, hard day of work.
Yep.
That's great sounding, but what is the process you use for asking yourself what needs to be done today to make it the best day of my life? No. Yeah, not to make it the best day of my life, but to be the best day of that day. To be...
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think it's a very subjective question because obviously some days are harder than others, but I think, the underlying statement is like being aware that you should always want to be better than you were the day before. And that could be running an extra minute. It could be making your bed. It could be a variety of things, but I think having that mindset and knowing that none of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. I will continue to fail, but I always look at failure as there's never a failure because I'll learn from those failures, and there's always value in that learning. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice normally. But I think I look at I feel like I look at working hard as something that I was taught and I fully believe in. And when you feel that sense of accomplishment, and I also like to keep it realistic. I have lofty long-term goals, but also it's good to give yourself a few layups so you feel accomplished and you don't get discouraged. So many times, and this goes back to social media, people set unrealistic expectations. And, it's like you can't expect to lose 20 pounds in 1 week before spring break starts when you haven't gone to the gym or eaten healthy or done any of the work that goes along with getting healthy.
Oh, you mean that has something to do with being healthy?
But I like to give myself a few layups, a couple home runs or whatever we want to say, so that I feel good. And then it's like once you do it for a week, it becomes easier, and for a month, and then you get into the routine and you get in the habit, and then it's like all these things that you thought were so daunting become part of your process of success.
I like that. I want to know, so we've given some philosophical ideas about it. I want to get into practical. What do you do? What advice might you have for our listeners who feel the need to do that? And we're going to take a break, but we're going to come back and we're going to address this question. You advocate a way of living that treats life as a business. In fact, you say life is a business, And I want to talk about what you mean by that.
Okay.
Hi there, this is Charlie Hedges, and you are listening to The Next Chapter. And our special guest is Tom Yankle, who is, I would say critic, but I don't mean critic negatively. I mean an observer and a sort of historian, on a contemporary historian on the life of cultures and generations in America. And before the break, Tommy has a theory that he advocates that life is a business and that we need to treat our lives as a business. I am really interested in what you mean by that, Tom, because I see pluses and I see minuses in that, and I want to see what you have to say about it.
Sure, absolutely. And there, just like any business, there are absolutely pluses and minuses. I think I'm trying to create more, or I try to create more awareness about what it takes to have a successful life or a successful business, because they're very interchangeable. I think, when we were talking about this a few weeks or months back, I remember, I'll start with college, and I think I was griping about college. You go to high school, or you go through all of your schooling, you get to college, and you have to retake essentially your gen ed classes, which are classes you already took in high school. And I was, I think, pretty sure venting that I didn't do well in those courses because they weren't exciting to me. I didn't need to retake a biology lab because I knew I was never going to be a scientist or a doctor. And I've thought about that because college is one of the biggest businesses in the world. And when I transferred schools, I had to retake them again, and I was frustrated, I was angry, I felt like I was getting ripped off. But it helped to create, there's, just like I said earlier about failure, there's value in understanding that, to win the race you have to run or understand the path. And I think that's where I say life is a business. So I'm very hyper aware of what is going on and what makes a successful life, without getting maybe all consumed in the many things that are shoved in our faces via social media, via the internet, or what is in theory told to us to like or be cool or buy or eat. And with that awareness, I feel like I've been able to become more successful in my life and have a better understanding of not being just another absent-minded consumer. And people just are like, oh, see it, gotta buy it, not questioning why would we need to do that. And me, I'm always asking the why. And I think in understanding life as I know it, as a soon to be 40-year-old man next week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I feel excited and confident in my what I've learned so far, and how to, at least that I've created that awareness in myself, and then I'm able to use that to be, it's like anything. If you have a shortcut or a way to do something better, that's what you should do. If you have a way to feel more successful or save time and save money and create more happiness, and not necessarily just believe, what some company tells you is the best. It could be, but you should want it to be the best for you, not because someone else told you.
It sounds to me like it's as much a mindset as it is a strategy. It's that you have certain strategies that you will do, and I'd love for you to tell us about those. But it also sounds like it's coming from a freedom mindset, an idea of pursuing what is good and whole and tasty and fruitful for other people. As a matter of fact, you define success as freedom, not acquisition of wealth. What sort of lifestyle processes do you use to live life as a business. And I'm not thinking just the business part of it, but I'm thinking the lifestyle part of it. How do you combine those two?
Well, I think, to me, freedom is important. It's when you're not beholden to a conglomerate or a corporation in so many senses. I think that's where having freedom gives you peace of mind, and freedom also comes with asking questions. Free. There's plenty of reasons why money is extremely important. It's easier to do things and have that freedom, but I actually 100% don't agree that just having wealth makes you successful, because you could have all the money in the world and still be a miserable human being. You're not truly happy, and I think happiness is freedom. So in my strategy of life, I think it starts with, for me, and different strokes for different folks, but it starts with a good routine. And this is something that I implore and we implore as a household, and it starts in the morning. And nobody wants to get up early every day, but it starts with that.
But you guys are up at 6 in the morning.
6 a.m. every day. Normally I'm up at 5:30. And I think I saw the best versions of myself when I was getting up early and sort of getting my brain working earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's like wasn't rushing into, but it's like I got up, read a little, read some emails, I didn't just wake up and run the race. It's like I started my engine, I let it run for a little bit, and then I started thinking. So it really starts in the morning, and I try to have general little habits. Make my bed every day. I don't know why. I never wanted to make my bed when I was a kid. I hated it.
Sounds like you attended Alcoholics Anonymous. They make us make our bed every day. That's our first task every day.
It's just something that, I feel like it's like if you have a clean bed, it's like, I don't know.
Oh, it's wonderful. You walk into the bedroom and it just feels organized, it feels right, it feels ready, it doesn't feel cluttered and chaotic.
Yeah, no, it's just it's another habit. It's just something, and it could be anything. Any sort of routine is what
routine. I so identify with that, and I so agree. I love that idea of routine, and you do have a routine. There's something. Go ahead, please. I want you to continue.
No, I think the idea of the routine it almost becomes like a healthy addiction, or just like that sort of like sets the guidelines of like, all right, well, I didn't make my bed yet, I need to do that. And it's not like I need to make my bed for any other reason other than in my subconscious I know I didn't, and that's going to bother me. And the fact that it bothers me is good, because it used to not bother me. But because of the routine and that sort of like structure, like the healthy type of structure that, if I don't make my bed, nothing is going to happen to me. I won't lose my job. I won't. But I now know as a human being and as a person that, like, if I don't make my bed today, something went wrong. Be it I was sick, or I had a bad day and I just didn't, whatever. But that's sort of like, that's the first step of having that routine and being true to yourself with it.
Something producer Paul and I were talking about as we were doing sound checks and talking about what we're going to do on the show today. Listeners may be interested that you work with a professional athlete and you are sort of the accountability, I don't want to say supervisor, but you make sure everybody follows the routine because everybody's agreed on the routine. But yeah. what you guys I have observed is you guys have a lifestyle contract that it is not necessarily written, but what do you mean by a lifestyle contract?
Well, I think it's something that's obviously very new, but it's also the best way to be. And I think that having each other to be accountable to, like, we're not gonna we might let ourselves down individually, but we won't let each other down. And that sort of forces us to always level up and do the work. And I think that's a main, sort of the next step is do the work. You have to do the work if you want to be successful. And that work could be a variety of different things. And that goes any different, there's a lot of different things for me that mean doing the work. And it's never daunting, but it's still work and it still needs to be done. But then once the work is done, you feel that sense of accomplishment like we talked about earlier. And I think that's what constantly keeps us motivated, especially that, and like seeing the results of said work are exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of the positive feedback that we feel from each other, but also the results that we see individually and as a collective unit it's exciting, because that way we know what we're doing is working.
You know what you guys sound like to me? A Benedictine monastery. I'm serious. As most of my listeners know, I spend 3 days a month at a monastery and spend time with the abbot. And there are 4 activities of every monk, and that is to work, study, pray, and rest. That's their activity every day. They do have work. They must contribute. The monastery cannot run without the work efforts of every monk. Every monk must do certain things. And they don't do it for themselves. It's not...
Yeah.
Certainly they're reaping the benefits of doing good work, just as you said, doing good work, but it is all for the sake of the community. They're doing this work that satisfies them individually, but contributes to the spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being of every one of the other monks, and then it sort of enlightens and shines out to the community of visitors that visit the abbey, visit the monastery. They can see this. There's a group. There is a lifestyle contract. What if smaller companies? I don't know how larger companies can do it, because I can't think that broadly right now. But smaller companies, what if there were more of a lifestyle contract that's not replaces, but is in addition to our productive whatever we are producing in the company?
I think that's a very high level of intelligence, and I think it makes a lot of sense to me. If so much of it is like you got to try to get everyone to drink the Kool-Aid. And I think for our lifestyle contract, we all bring something different to the table. And we're all essentially experts in each of what we do. And because we're all so similar but so different, and we all do these different things that help the greater good of our community. But we're all on the same, we're all parallel. We're all going in the same direction, but we're all on our own little path. But we're all going the same direction. And I think that's the most important thing. Because we're all going the same direction, we're often aligned, and when we see the results that we see as a company would, if everyone could be on board or drink the Kool-Aid, it helps create that natural sense of camaraderie.
I get it.
And doing it together, even though we're not doing everything together, because obviously all of our jobs are different. But everything is for the greater good of all of us, that community. It would be a very interesting, experiment to see how a small business could apply that. And then maybe, I've always liked, dangle the carrot and see like, hey, if you guys can all work together and put aside personal differences, and I think that's, everyone's a me, I now, instead of working as a team and accomplishing. It's like you have to, all great leaders should never care about, leaders find your job as a leader is to extract the greatness out of each of your employees, and knowing how to talk to each of those people to figure out how to extract that greatness is a big part of it. And you have to put aside like if you're better at something than me and I'm your boss, as a leader, I don't care. I want you to do aces in their best places. And that's why I think there's no ego. It's like, hey, if you're better than me, by all means. That way I can do what I need to do.
And what I'm good at, I'm able to do I'm not working away from my giftedness. I'm working within my giftedness.
And I'm also willing to put aside if somehow someone became better than me, then I need to adapt and pivot and understand that I still add value. It's just going to be different. And that's sort of like the natural evolution of business and life, and that, like, I guess, togetherness.
That's a great verb you use too, is pivot. I think that's essential. You know, let's wrap up the show, and I want to tell you about my latest venture that I am involved. You know, I'm sort of a guy that has gotten, as I've gotten older, I've gotten more committed to charitable organizations, and I'm very involved with this charity called Higher Ground. I want to read the mission, then the vision, then I want to tell you about the team, and I can do this very briefly. But the mission of Higher Ground is it works in underserved communities right now in Orange County, in Anaheim, and Fullerton, and they are largely non-English speaking, Latin speaking, which I have just enrolled in an accelerated Spanish course. And the mission of Higher Ground is this: Higher Ground serves youth and families in underserved communities with acutely relevant programs that develop competencies for building meaningful lives of purpose and possibility. So that's a typical vision statement, although our mission statement, but that's exactly what we do. But the vision is this: to build communities where underserved people have a chance. That's it. And chance, it's ambiguous. It's left, have a chance.
Yeah.
When running the 100-yard dash, they're not starting 10 yards behind everybody else. They're starting at point zero, at the starting line. And there's 10 leaders that I'm working with. They each have specific job descriptions. They know what they're doing. They know what their goals are. I've been working with the staff on that, but there is not one of them that would not give up that job if there was somebody better on staff that had time and was more qualified. They care only about developing a community where underserved people have a chance, and we produce mentoring resources to help people grow for purpose and possibility. That you just described that organization and why it is so pleasant. As a matter of fact, I worked with an individual who was I told her, I asked her if I could get involved in her area, and rather than getting defensive, which is what I would normally face in the corporate world, how dare you come into my area? She said, are you kidding? My goodness, another team member to work with this. She was excited. Where do you, that's the way organizations should operate.
That's a smart person right there, and I think that's a telltale sign of somebody that has either been successful or will be successful for the rest of their lives.
And it's sort of right in line with what you advocate, isn't it, Tommy?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I mean, I think so much of it, and it's when you can put aside those. I've done it, and it's not necessarily easy, but you have to take yourself out of it and realize that. I would always say, like, no one's bigger than the business, like, or whatever the cause, the business, whatever it is. Like, we're here to make this the best, to help, to grow, to challenge. And when you have that sort of small mind, small mentality of only looking out for yourself, that's when you sort of get gobbled up. And it's sad to see that more people, I wish more people would have that, courage to be okay with, pivoting and accepting new challenges or learning and continuing to grow.
That is so well said. I want to close with a statement that you made to me that I think our sort of lifestyle contracts, our sort of treating life as a business begins with creating awareness of what really matters. That's sung to me. Well, Tommy, go ahead.
I love it. And I was going to say, I believe that, and I guess you could say I bleed that thought every day.
You're the best. I'm so happy you're in my life and involved with people I love.
Same.
It means a lot to me. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, Tom.
Anytime, Charlie. Anytime.
Okay. I'd like to thank all our listeners for tuning into the next chapter with Charlie. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.